Hello, lovely, and welcome to the Essence of Expression podcast. Get ready to explore insights, lessons, practices, and wisdom from life for life. I'm your host, Arejay, healer, teacher, student, and sage. I'm excited and honored to have you with me on this journey. Let's dive in. I've been seeing a lot of questions about tarot lately, so I wanted to take some time to answer them, especially for the beginners, which is who I see a lot of these questions coming from. And I wanted a place just to answer these questions kind of all in one space and not across multiple groups. But I started reading tarot 8 years ago, 8, maybe 9, I don't know, somewhere in there. And I was a reluctant comer to tarot. It wasn't anything that I had ever really wanted to get into. I wasn't really super curious about it. But it was part of my energy healing apprenticeship that I did to learn, that was part of the curriculum, was to actually learn to read tarot. And I actually ended up loving it, right? So I still do readings from time to time, and I kind of open them up as I see fit. But I see a lot of people now coming to tarot, and I think that's great. It's a wonderful tool to work with. And I just wanted to answer some of the questions I'm seeing. So one of the questions is, do cards need to be gifted? No, they don't. I bought my first deck. I've bought most of the decks that I have. There have only been a couple that I've been gifted. And related to that gifted question, there is another one that was asking if it was bad that they don't like a deck that was gifted all that much, and they like the deck that they bought better, and therefore they use the one that they bought more. No, that's not bad. That's just you're more drawn to the deck that you bought, which is why you bought it. And when we're doing any type of work that is energetic and rooted in intuition and energy and spirit, it's going to be important to work with what's calling you, right? So your own discernment is going to tell you, oh, this is going to work better, this isn't going to work better, and you're going to kind of naturally be pulled one way or the other toward what's going to be working for you, as long as that's the parameter that you've set around your work. So another question that I've seen is, how many cards do you pull for a reading? And the answer is, it depends. It's going to depend on whatever spread you're using. So the spreads is the particular layout for the cards. And so common beginner ones are a 3-card spread. Then you also have a Celtic cross spread. You can Google any of these and it'll show you the actual layout, and it'll give you the indication of what the card represents in each position. But it's just the layout of the cards is what a spread is. So how many cards you pull for reading is really going to depend on what spread you're using, which is normally going to be some readers just have a spread that they just go to, and that's just how they read. Some will have multiple spreads that they use. I like to create my own spreads from time to time, and so it's really going to, how I choose what spread I use is going to be largely determined by the question that's being asked and how much detail I'm trying to get and what the time frame that I'm looking over is. So it varies, but if you're using a spread, the spread will tell you, it'll be very clear. It'll tell you how many cards, what card goes where, and then it'll tell you, card 1 means this or represents this, etc. So it can vary. You can pull 1 card, you can pull a bunch of cards. Some people like larger spreads, some people like smaller spreads. The more you practice with it and just get a feel for it, the more you'll have an idea what you want to be in and where you like to play. Okay, so is there something you should do or steps to follow the first time using tarot cards? I'm not sure if this question was meant in terms of literally like when I first sit down to read, or more in terms of what to do with your first deck. So I'm gonna take a minute and answer it from both perspectives. For your deck, like when you first get a deck, personally, I would say you should always clean your deck, like cleanse your deck, and you should always set an intention of some sort with your deck and then spend some time bonding, right? Now those are not hard, fast things. I don't believe there's any really truly like mandatory thing that has to be done. However, in my practice and the way that I teach, like cleansing, intention setting, and then spending some time with your deck is what I teach. It's also what I do. And the reason I do that is when I say cleanse, like we're cleansing any energy that's not part of the cards, right? And this is just to help keep any undue influences out of readings. And same thing for like the intention setting. Think of it as kind of programming how you want to work, right? Like kind of setting up the terms of how you want to work with this deck. So some people, when they do the intention setting, will get really specific with the deck, because some people will have multiple decks and like a different deck for each purpose. So, you know, if they're doing like relationship readings, they might have a certain deck, and that intention may have been set to work with that deck in that way. For me, it's really usually my intention is just to work with the cards in a way that provide clarity and deeper understanding and healing in a way that brings harm to none, for the greatest good and highest healing of all who touch the cards and who work with the cards. That's usually what my intention is. So it can be something more general like that, or it can be something more specific in how you want to work with it. And then in terms of spending time with my deck, I normally don't start reading with the deck right away. I normally go through the cards once, like just looking at them and just seeing what comes up. And then I will go through the book as well that it came with, reading through that and sitting with the cards. And so I would say normally for me, for a new tarot deck, it's probably a month or so before I start reading with it. It does not have to be that. It, like, everyone's process is different. I'm not saying that needs to be the case. Like some people will sleep with it under their pillow. I've done that. I still do that, but I still like the getting to know process of, hey, let's read through the book and sit with the card in front of me and understand how the creator was meaning for the cards to be interpreted. Because even though tarot itself is a system and there is a like standard way of reading tarot, there are still like, you know, nuances and things that get introduced whenever it's a different deck. And not all of the deck creators follow the same tarot system. So it helps to know which system your deck is modeled after. And then that'll also help you when you're trying to ascertain the meanings a little bit better. So the next question is learning the meanings and like how to better learn the meanings of cards. And I think when it comes to this, there are a lot of people who try to memorize, and I will forever be grateful for the fact that my mentor did not teach us to memorize. Even though, yes, we go through the system and we go through learning the meanings that are associated with the cards, part of the way we do that is to understand its meaning and then think of like specific times in your life and try to go back to the instances that made you feel those things so that you can feel them in your body, so that your body itself starts to remember the card, because it gets this flood of feelings when you have the card out. And it's been so helpful, and I think it's a better way than trying to just logic and memorize your way through it. Then another question I see that's been asked is, how do you weave the story together, like between the cards? And that is also still it's gonna depend on your question, like the question that's being asked, and it's also gonna depend on the spread and what the positions of those cards are representing will kind of teach you how to weave it. But the way that I approach this, like from kind of like a teaching standpoint, right, is going to be, what is that card representing? Like, with the position that this card is in, what is it representing, right? And then I'm going to think, what is the meaning of the actual, like, so like if I got, Three of Cups or whatever, what is the actual card? What is the meaning for the card that is associated, and how is it applicable to what's being represented by its position, right? That's where you start. And so you're kind of going to do that for each of the cards, and then you look between the cards for your spread, whatever direction your spread is moving in, and wherever the spread tells you to like go next, it's going to be, what is the relationship between this card's meaning as it is applicable to the spot that it's in? What is its relationship to the next card's meaning as it's applicable to the space that it's in? And that's how you begin to weave the story into it. It kind of takes practice, but the more you practice it, the more like the storyline gets, it becomes way more natural, especially the more you work with the cards, especially if you're maintaining the same deck, because you're not trying to, like when you're first learning it, it's a little bit much because you're trying to remember what the card means. You're trying to remember what the position that the card is in for this spread means, and then interpret that, and then speak it in a way that's cohesive and makes sense. And so as you learn the cards and you learn the spreads that you like and you work with frequently, there's less for your mind to be thinking of, and so the story begins to just kind of weave itself, right? That repetition builds up and you're like, oh, okay, well, if I'm reading like past, present, future cards, a card spread, right? We know that like this first card is the past, so this is what you're coming from. This is the energy that you've moved out of, right? And then the present is going to be where you are now, what's coming up in this moment, right? And then as you look at the future, it's going to be, okay, what are we moving toward? Or at least potentially, what are we moving toward if the situation is left unchanged, right? That's kind of the most basic flow. So what comes up in the present is somehow or another supporting your pathway to that future, right? Now, if that future is not one that you desire, then we need to start changing some things in the present, right? But essentially that's how it begins to weave. And again, all the spreads that you work with are going to be different, but really just start to notice what the meaning of the card is, how it's applicable in the position that it is in. And then when we're looking at the next card, great, what is the relationship between the meaning of this card as applicable in its position in relationship to the card that preceded it, and so on. And then so then there was a question about, well, I wrote it down and I don't see it. I know there was also a question regarding like, do you prefer one deck or do you prefer multiple decks for readings? I personally, at this point now, prefer multiple decks. But that's also being said from a place like I started with a singular deck. I actually didn't work with that deck very long because I started with Rider-Waite-Smith, which is really great for learning the system that is tarot and the symbolism within that. However, that never, like, those designs of those cards never called to me. I didn't particularly resonate with those. They weren't pretty for me to look at. They weren't inspiring to me. So I stopped reading with those fairly quickly. They are a great learning tool. And then I hopped into another deck that actually is based on Thoth, and that's a different system than Rider-Waite-Smith, but I actually like that system better for me. And so I have different systems under my belt. I do both tarot readings and oracle card readings, and I also do card readings using tarot cards that are intuitive readings. They're not rooted, they're not tied very tightly to the tarot system, right? And so figuring out what type of readings with tarot cards you want to do. Do you want to do actual tarot readings where, hey, there's a structured system and then we need to learn this, or where you want to be doing intuitive readings that just work with the tarot cards, which is more, there's not a system for you to learn. And it's really more you using the image to activate and tap further into your intuition in a way that's more cohesive and just strictly relevant to the question. So it depends on which way you want to go with it as to which decks you're going to want to work with. And for me, I do like having multiple decks to choose from when doing a reading, because sometimes one deck will call to me over the other, meaning just as I think about the question that is being asked and the answers that we're looking for, like there will be one deck that kind of comes to mind over the other, or allowing like the person who's sitting for a reading to choose whatever deck they feel more comfortable with. I like doing that. I like having that option for people. So that is it. And I would also say, one of the things that I did learn that I didn't know initially, and I felt really bad, a lot of the like pocket decks are counterfeit decks. They're not by the original creators, they're knockoffs, and the creators don't actually get like the money for those cards. So usually either avoid those cards, or some of the cards are legitimate and you'll know it more because you just go straight through the publisher of the cards. So if the pocket deck is coming from the original publisher of the deck, that's a legitimate pocket-sized deck. But like if you're like, hey, I just found this pocket-sized deck on like Instagram or Temu or whatever, chances are highly likely that it's a knockoff deck and the creators are not getting any profit from it. So just a tidbit there for you, so you don't make that mistake like I did initially. And I think overall, just the more you practice with tarot, the better you get, the easier it becomes, the more it's just like muscle memory, the more relaxed you can be, and then you can tap in a little bit deeper and you will find your flow, you will understand what works for you. And I would just say one of the things I just like to be really clear with people, because I don't believe that there is a right or like wrong way to work with tarot, meaning like, hey, if you want to read intuitively and just use tarot cards for that intuitive reading, great. If you want to read tarot because you want to read the tarot system, great. I just think it's really important to be very clear about which of those you're offering. And if you're offering both, then great. Just know which one your client is looking for if you are at a point where you're starting to work with clients. And also you see this question of like, do the people I'm reading for touch the deck, or do they not touch the deck? I generally don't have people touch the deck necessarily, but most of my readings are distance readings, so that's just the way I've worked out, and I've gotten used to it, and now I'm like, I don't really want you touching my cards. Like, you can, but if you do have the people that you're reading for touching the cards, then I would recommend cleansing them, a bit more, like cleanse them after each person, basically. And I still cleanse my cards in between readings, but the way I cleanse when there's been physical contact with the cards is a bit different. And I realize as I'm talking about cleansing the cards, some of you may be new to the point where you're like, what does that mean? So for cleansing the cards, it's energetically cleansing them. And I have done it in multiple ways. So I usually will use smoke to cleanse it. So I'll burn sage, and then I will burn a bit of Palo Santo, because that's just me. Like, if we're going to clear, we're also going to call in, because something is inevitably going to fill a space that we've just cleared. So for me, I prefer to be intentional about calling in what's going to fill the space, as opposed to just clearing and leaving it wide open for whatever. But so usually a smoke cleanse. I've also done it where, like, I've used the mist created by like an aromatherapy diffuser. I've used sounds. I've used bells to break up any stagnant energy that may be happening. You can use crystals as well. So how you go about cleansing it is going to be up to you, like everything else in life, in this world, right? And so that's what I'm talking about when I say cleanse it, and I do it a variety of different ways. You will find the way that you like to do it. I usually have like a blend of essential oils in a spray form, like so in water, like in a distilled water, that I can spray, especially like when I travel where you're in a hotel room and you can't burn stuff. But yeah, so that is all I have for you today around tarot. If you have questions, feel free to submit them. Like, I have a form that you guys can submit questions, or even if you're like, I have a topic that I'd like for you to speak on, you can request a topic in that form. I do go through every submission. I don't guarantee that I will necessarily make an episode on the requested topic, because I'm about, like, the whole point of this podcast is really expressing what's really present and alive for me. So if that's not if that's not in alignment with the request, I'm not going to, I probably won't create an episode, or at least I won't create it right then. But I do go through everything, and I will make sure that there is some sort of response to you. Thank you for your time and attention. If you enjoyed this episode, follow the show. If someone came to mind while you were listening to this episode, please take a moment to share it with them. If you're interested in joining a community and diving further into these topics, please visit theessenceofexpression.com/community and request to join our community group. Thank you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night or day, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.